Hello there, Neil from Small Business Big Ideas here with day 8 of my 101 Small Business Marketing Tips video series. So today very quickly follows on from yesterday, which was about updating your business cards. And I did ask the question whether it was really necessary to update your business cards and whether you really needed business cards. And then I talked a little bit about the wonderful GDPR, which might cause everybody to update their business cards to have a really clunky data protection opt-in statement or something like that on it. But unfortunately, because nobody's telling us much detail about GDPR, we're all just left to guess and make it up as we go along. And there's lots of people out there scaring people silly with how it's going to cause the world to end. So let's not talk about GDPR. Let's talk about making your business card stand out, which is today's tip. So there's a number of ways that you can make your business card stand out. I showed you mine yesterday. Pretty basic. It's a rectangle. Which these days it doesn't have to be. You can have nice square cards, which I've seen, which obviously stand out, but when you are wrapping them all together, like many people do in elastic band, that does become a bit of a pain. Mine has got typical pointy corners. You can have nice rounded corners. You can have die cut elements cut out of the actual card. You don't have to have the card as a square or an oblong. You can have it in pretty much whichever shape you'd like it to be. Obviously, the more complicated, the more costly it's likely to be. Mine, not that you can see here, but has got quite a nice sort of matte laminate feel, which gives it a premium feel. I think it's worth spending a bit of time at the moment just to talk about the sort of the quality aspect of business cards. And yesterday I mentioned that they are pretty inexpensive. I'd suggest that no one really who's serious about business and isn't just doing it as some form of, part-time selling a few cakes down at the local WI sort of thing. Anybody who's serious about business, don't go down the route of getting them printed by the likes of Vistaprint, because firstly, everybody will be able to tell they're Vistaprint because the quality is pretty low in terms of the paper stock they use, and also they have their own unique size. So whereas this is a pretty standard size card, the Vistaprint ones are slightly different, so they do stand out in that way, but not necessarily in a good way. That does bring me on to another interesting point when we're talking about sort of stationery and things like that. There are a lot of suppliers out there who do some quite nice premium end stuff, the opposite end of the spectrum to the likes of Vistaprint. I've come across a company called, I think, moo.com. And they do some really high quality stuff, again, sort of different shapes, really, really thick card. There will be other websites out there that do that sort of stuff. But this is something that I'm certainly trying to, a strategy I'm trying to employ myself wherever possible, which is to try not to necessarily go down the online route just to save a couple of quid. I think the majority of small businesses would probably be very grateful if all of their local potential customers shopped local, yet they're quite hypocritical because then they go online just to save a couple of quid by buying something off the internet. So it is difficult, and you do have to sort of check yourself and remind yourself to do this, but wherever possible I'd suggest you try and get the likes of business cards and things like that from a local supplier. Chances are that unless you're doing something incredibly weird and wacky, I'd suggest you will be able to find something locally, and whilst it may not be absolutely the most rock bottom price you can get, what comes around what goes around comes around. So, you know, you're helping support a local business. They may in turn be more likely to support you, or certainly refer to you if they come across someone who might need your services. So don't always think lowest price when you're buying the likes of business cards and stuff like that. I'd strongly suggest you see if you can find a local supplier, especially if you're doing things like networking groups. It's all well and good, you know, shaking hands and making friends with people at the networking group, but it's about business. So, you know, if there's a printer in your local networking group, why not ask him to print your business cards? So, that's me slightly going off on one, but I think it was a valid point to make. Anyway, how to make your business card stand out? Well, you know, there are a number of ways to do so, limited really only by your imagination. They don't have to be rectangular like mine is. They don't have to be traditional with pointy corners. They can have round corners. They can have die cutting. One thing you'll see on mine, I have a photo on mine. Some people like having photos on, other people don't. I'm a believer that you should have a photo, or that it's beneficial to have a photo, because it then puts in people's mind, you know, what you look like as a visual reminder. Problem with mine is I look bloody miserable, so I do need to get those changed, and I will be shopping local. You can get business cards done out of plastic, I saw some available out of material, like almost denim or something like that. So it really does, the limit of what you can do is only really limited by your imagination. But what I would suggest, and it follows on from yesterday's point, is, you know, don't go crazy and therefore expensive just for the sake of it. You need to balance creating a bit of standout with what makes financial sense. So just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. And I would consider a business card to be pretty much a stock staple commodity item, and I would question whether you get a massive amount of added return from spending a lot of money on the more wild and wacky elements. But I suppose it depends on your industry. You know, if you're in a creative industry, then you're more likely to want something to be a little bit more creative or reflective of your personality. So that's it, humble business cards. We'll be talking tomorrow, I believe, about another stock printed item, which is your brochure. So I shall see you tomorrow. Bye.